Exactly. It is 9:30 in the morning. It is 9:30 de la mañana. Bird game 3. Dog, I'm maining hummingbird. I was a pelican main, but now I'm maining hummingbird. I don't know if bird game is a real thing. I'm unsure. It is unclear to me. Why am I live? Because I work tonight and because I work tonight and I wanted to play Minecraft really, really bad. So I thought I thought we could watch the Defunct Land video and play Minecraft. No, somebody left me an idea yesterday that said to make a dive bar in Minecraft, and now I really want to make my and I've been thinking about it. But I was like, it's not a let's play if I let's play it by myself. Still in bed? Me too! Was the Thanksgiving tweet real? Which one? The most depressing Thanksgiving ever? Yeah, that was what work gave us. That was what my job gave us, was deli meat. And, deli cheese, and it sat out for like 10 hours, and I kept telling people you gotta throw that away. What would you do if a viewer worked at your job? Do you work at my job? That'd be silly. I'd laugh. I'd say hi to you backstage. Work did end up giving us better food. Yes, I do work at Disney. But we only ended up getting better food because my specific job was serving a Thanksgiving dinner, and they let us have it. But yeah, I was really feeling bad when I was like sliced deli meat and Jack cheese. All right, Disney, you're really busting out the big guns for that. But I don't think anyone ever threw the deli meat away, and I kept saying like, hey, we can't do that. We can't be giving that to people. Who wants to? Oh yeah, this big red thing is the Defunct Land video. Look, there's you guys, chat. There's you. Chef Mickey made it himself. I actually really like our chefs. I'm a big fan of our chefs. I get along with all of them really well. I actually had the head honcho of the whole place I work. I don't know how much I want to give away. Like, I've posted in my uniform, but you guys don't know what uniform that is because... Nah, I was gonna say because you're too broke, but that's not funny. I was gonna try to be funny. I was gonna try to be silly funny, but it was just gonna be mean. I'll talk about it when I'm done. I'm only here for a little bit, but the head honcho of where I work came up to me and he was like, are you interested in working full-time? And I was like, And he was like, why don't you come to my office and see me sometime? I was like, I don't know about that. Unless you're gonna make me a princess, I don't know about that. Marie Soda. I already feel really bad about cheating in this universe, but I really like the meadow that we've... I really like the lay of this land. So I kind of feel like we have to. What princess would I be? Most people say Snow White, but I don't agree with that because Snow White has big brown eyes and I have big blue eyes. I don't know about that. Maybe Spider-Man. Yeah, I'm the one that they chuck up into the air. If I could be the Tinkerbell that they launch out of a cannon, I'd be the happiest girl in the world. Have a good day. Thank you. You too. Tight and dry. Why did I just notice that that's your name? I thought your name was like Tight Andy, not Tight and Dry. Now I'm kind of paranoid. Is one of my coworkers in here right now? Okay, prepare for the crash. If my PC crashes, it's not my fault. But look it. Like, how am I supposed to not want to live here when it looks this? Oh, I should probably like full. I did that and everything. Right? But this looks freaking baller. I've got to. Uh-oh. Bad news on the horizon. Isn't that song? I see the. Oh, it's Bad Moon Rising, not Bad Moon on the Horizon. That's the remix. Yeah. God, I'm so good at this game. And honestly, what was that? What was that? Oh, thank you for following. It's been so long, I don't even remember my own notives. That's terrible. I don't even think you guys can hear them. I think I broke my OBS to where only I can hear the sounds, which is very unfortunate. I just look like a crazy person. I should eep so that we can actually do stuff. I haven't even built a gosh diddly dang furnace yet. What were we doing night one? But yeah, I feel really guilty about cheating the first time I die. So just know, it'll never happen again. This is a clean, fresh start. I want this. I want this. This. Oh, I didn't get any oak sap. What a silly turd I am. Goodness me. Okay. Yeah, well, hello. Oh yeah, I need to start my Defunct Land video. Don't you guys want to watch? I do.
At the end of this line is the result of over a century of technological progress, decades of research and development, and millions of dollars in funding.
Oh.
At the end of this line is a gamble, a bet on a bold...
Ah! Did it just break? Hey. Oh, if my PC shuts down, I'm gonna be so sad. Hey. What the heck? What the heck? My mic is quiet? Oh yeah, I need to turn my gain. I need to turn my gain, bruh. Keep forgetting that. Okay. Wait. Why? What? Why is everything broken? What did I do? What did I do? I broke everything. Everything's broken. Oh my gosh. No. Wait, maybe I have to watch it on Chrome? On Google Chrome? Because why the frick would Firefox not work? Defunct Land. Trying to be lazy here, okay? Goodness gravy, can't they? Okay, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then I do window capture, and then I do Google, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then I select. Isn't this fun? Isn't it fun to watch someone who has no idea what they're doing ever to any capacity? you mean I already named one? How ridiculous. Best stream ever. Come on, come on, come on. You don't mean that. I know you don't mean that. Browser source. This. Wait, maybe this. Maybe? I did it. Mucky. Oh, we're going back to Shapeland. You know, 600 people. Oh. Oh, hi, Justin. You don't hear the video. Is that just me? You guys can hear it, can't you? Wait, you can't. What? Why didn't you say something? I'm gonna cry. Ah. Ah, no one said anything. That's not my fault. No. No one said anything. It's not my fault. That's not my bad. Ah. Okay, 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 okay. I can fix it. I can fix it. I can fix it. I can. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I should just delete the stream and start over. That's what I should do. Oh, gosh. Diddly dang it. On my mama. On my mama if this doesn't work. Hello, Boop Snoop. On my freaking mama. If this does not work. I'm gonna say some bad words. I'm gonna say a couple of bad words.
At the end of this line,
This had better freaking work. This had better freaking work.
Walt
I can
and the
see it. I can
Imagineers
see the
faced
soundbar
significant
moving
obstacles
around.
when
There
they
we
attempted
go.
to make a machine look and move like a human,
Boosh.
but designing a machine that could behave and interact like one would be even more challenging. Not only would this require additional technology, but it would require a new methodology for engineering interactions between mechanical characters and guests. There are three primary methods for governing the behavior of a machine. The first category is scripted behaviors. Scripted behaviors encompass all of the ways that a designer can dictate a character's behavior prior to the interaction. In the golden age of automata, the movement of figures was often controlled using complex cams. When programming the Lincoln animatronic, the Imagineers used audio tones recorded onto magnetic tape to store the figure's movements. Both of these pre-programming techniques would be considered scripted behaviors. Because these types of behaviors have to be determined in advance, characters that rely solely on scripting cannot truly be interactive. When Walt was developing the animatronics
He's
in the
already
late
lost me a little bit,
1950s,
I'm not
he
gonna
pitched a
lie.
dinner show in which a mechanical figure would interact with the audience. Since this was not possible at the time, the Imagineers considered faking the call and response by scripting both sides of the interaction. They planned to pump pre-recorded questions into the room, hoping that diners would think a live guest in the crowd was interacting with the animatronic. While this could have been an interesting illusion, it would not have resulted in a true interactive character. In order for a guest and a character to have a true exchange, a designer would need to utilize methods from the other behavior categories, the second of which is puppeteered behaviors. Puppeteered behaviors allow for a human to operate the mechanical character in real time. Just as traditional puppeteers use their physical strength to direct the movement of their puppet, a human operator can trigger and control aspects of mechanical characters. While not the intended use, the harness that Imagineer Wathel Rogers wore to program some of the original animatronics resulted in a puppeteered animatronic character. Puppeteer behaviors also include the live voicing of a character, which can allow for an actual conversation with a guest in a way that pre-recorded dialogue cannot. Finally, the third category is the behavior type that in Walt's time felt the furthest away: autonomous behaviors. This category allows a machine to intake information from its environment, decipher its meaning, and generate a response, all without the direct, explicit input of a human. By the time that Walt and the Imagineers were developing animatronics, most researchers agreed that the machine most likely to achieve such feats would be the programmable, electronic, general-purpose digital computer. But these types of automated behaviors, if possible at all, were still a long way out. However, that did not stop people from dreaming of the day that a computer could behave like a human. In 1950, English computer scientist Alan Turing published a paper titled Computing Machinery and Intelligence, which proposed a framework to evaluate a theoretical thinking machine. In his paper, Turing outlined a test that he called the imitation game, in which a human interrogator delivers written questions to two hidden participants, one human and one computer. Turing argued that if the interrogator could not reliably distinguish between the two based on their answers, then the computer might be considered an intelligent machine. In 1955, American computer scientist John McCarthy was credited with coining the term artificial intelligence. 4 years later, in 1959, IBM employee Arthur Samuel coined the term machine learning. A subset of artificial intelligence, machine learning enables computers to analyze data and improve their performance over time, without the need for additional programming by a human. While researchers developed frameworks for replicating human intelligence, computers were making progress on the replication of other processes, such as hearing and speaking. In 1961, IBM introduced the shoebox, which could recognize when a user spoke the digits 0 through 9, as well as 6 other English words: plus, minus, total, subtotal, false, and off. That same year, scientists at Bell Labs created a speech synthesis program capable of speaking and even singing in English.
Oh, it's Miku's grandpa. I don't get why it has to sound like a robot. I
In
don't get why we didn't just
1966,
do better.
MIT professor Joseph Weizenbaum unveiled Eliza, one of the world's first chatbots. Eliza was programmed to simulate an intake meeting with the therapist. The program was not accomplished with machine learning, but rather by looking for select keywords in a user's input, and then transforming these into Eliza's responses. For instance, if a user said, "I am sad," Eliza would recognize sad and respond with one of 4 outputs. "I'm sure it's not pleasant to be sad. Can you explain what made you sad? I am sorry to hear you are sad. Do you think coming here will help you not be sad?" If a user instead typed, "I am banana," Eliza was not capable of recognizing the word banana, or realizing that this does not make any sense. Instead, Eliza recognized the phrase "I am" and would remix the user's input into one of 4 responses. In this case, "How long have you been banana? Do you believe it normal to be banana? Do you enjoy being banana? And
I
is it
enjoy
because you
being
are banana
banana."
that you came to me?" The variability of the outputs were programmed to give the illusion that Eliza was really thinking. Weizenbaum knew Eliza's limitations and created the chatbot solely as an experiment. However, when associates of Weizenbaum tested the program, some believed that there was life in the machine. Weizenbaum, who knew that there definitely was not, spent significant time arguing against his own creation's sentience. The same year that Weizenbaum debuted Eliza, Disneyland began to embrace the information age. In January of 1966, the Imagineers purchased Disneyland's first computer. We know this because if you bought a computer in 1966, you might make the news. On January 28th, The Anaheim Bulletin reported on the park's purchase of the PDS-1020, a computer designed by Pacific Data Systems. The machine was described as a desk computer, not a desktop computer, but a desk computer, a computer that was shaped like a desk, so you could sit at it, or on it, even holding a flower,
is that why
if you
it's
like.
called
The PDS-1020 was powerful and compact for its time,
Dumbest
but
person
computers
alive
were still
voice.
nowhere close to becoming consumer products. They were not even versatile enough to be used in most creative professions. The PDS-1020, as you can see, doesn't even have a screen. Most commercial machines at this point still used a combination of an electronic typewriter and punch tape. The PDS-1020 was also expensive, costing $675 per month to lease, or around $6,700 today. The report speculated that the machine would be put to use designing and engineering Disneyland's new attractions, and could possibly assist in the programming of the park's new audio animatronic figures. It is not clear exactly what tasks the PDS-1020 ended up doing at Disneyland, or if Walt was aware of the machine and its potential uses. Walt would pass away on December 15, 1966,
Rip.
less than a year after Disneyland's purchase of the PDS-1020.
That's my boss.
At the time of Walt's death, the computer was only beginning to show its true potential. Had Walt survived just a few more years, he would have seen the revolution ahead of him. Unfortunately, this was not to be, and by pure coincidence, Walt, whose legacy would be as steeped in futurism as it was nostalgia, was precluded from viewing and likely participating in the radically different future that computers would bring. After Walt's death, his brother, Roy O. Disney, took control of the company and attempted to continue many of the projects that Walt had proposed before his passing. The most ambitious of these was Disney World and its proposed city of the future, Epcot. Roy would shelve the city project and focus efforts on the theme park and resort aspects of Walt's Florida project, opening the newly named Walt Disney World Resort and the Magic Kingdom theme park in October of 1971. The Magic Kingdom would be incredibly similar to Disneyland on the surface, but behind the scenes, the new park was far more advanced than its predecessor. Keeping with the spirit of Walt's proposal, several attractions' ride systems, as well as the resort's monorails, were operated using computer programs. One of the most impressive implementations of the computer in the new park was named DAX, the Digital Animation Control System. This patented system enabled Disney to program and store audio animatronic performances using the computer. This change allowed the Imagineers to create new, elaborate animatronic stage shows, including one of Walt's dreams, the Hall of Presidents. But the most complex animatronic in the Magic Kingdom, Disney's first attempt at advancing the art form without Walt, was an animated figure of Mickey Mouse. The Mickey Mouse Revue was a stage show in which Mickey conducted an orchestra of Disney characters, reportedly a concept that Walt had floated years prior. Mickey was Walt's most famous creation, and he was the company's mascot. His image was heavily protected by Walt Disney Productions, to the point that Mickey's original mischievous persona was softened to make him a more affable, and to some, bland character.
Mickey is very well known around the world, but the duck came along as a result of too many taboos put onto Mickey Mouse. People didn't
Taboos.
feel that Mickey could
Too many
blow his top like
taboos.
that. He had to
This
maintain
is a
certain
style of
dignity.
speaking that
The Mickey Mouse
unfortunately has
Revue would be the
lost.
first time Mickey was depicted as an animatronic, and there was a certain level of risk in translating such a
Oh.
valuable legacy character to the nascent art form.
We're
The
being lazy.
Imagineers
We're
put a
having lazy
significant amount of
Minecraft
care into the
fun
design,
time
and the Mickey Mouse animatronic ended up being the most complicated figure the team had ever built, with some reports saying that it had as many or more functions than the Abraham Lincoln
I've
animatronic.
never even
While
seen
there was a
this
definite
thing.
risk in depicting Mickey, the Mickey Mouse Revue, and Walt Disney World as a whole, was more the result of conservative decision-making than it was creative gambles. Just
Look
2
at
months
this.
after the Magic Kingdom opened,
is so
Roy
sick.
Disney would pass away. Disney's new leadership team, which was composed of many of Walt's trusted executives, doubled down on risk mitigation, choosing to guide the company with the often recited question, what would Walt do? Was this a feasible strategy to keep up with the times? Well, in
Do any of you watch
1971,
the
the same year that
Imagineering
Magic
story
Kingdom
on
opened,
Netflix?
the
Or on-
Kenback
on
Corporation
Netflix,
debuted
on
the
Disney?
Kenback One, the world's first
actually a
personal
really good
computer. That
series.
same year, the first commercially available
Even if you don't care about
microprocessor,
Disney,
the
it's
Intel
so
4004, was released. Soon after, the Xerox Alto computer system was completed, becoming one of the first machines to feature an attached screen with a graphical user interface that users could navigate using a mouse. As computers evolved, their potential uses
Mickey
grew
Mouse
exponentially.
from
In
Fable
1971,
Kingdom Hearts
engineers
game.
Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney created the first arcade video
still gotta play
game,
that at some
named
point.
Computer Space.
tree.
The following year, the two incorporated their company, Atari, and released another video game, Pong. In 1972,
Pong.
two graduate students at the University of Utah, Edwin Catmull and Fred Park, created a short film generated entirely on a computer. The result was one of the earliest examples of computer-generated graphics, and it showcased the versatility of computers in creative fields. By the late 70s, arcade games were advancing at a rapid rate,
Oh, look at that.
and a few companies, including
This is gonna
Atari,
be so
were
sick.
developing video game consoles for the home.
this is-
In 1977, Bushnell opened a new type of entertainment concept, combining arcade games, pizza, and Disney-style animatronics.
Freddy
Chuck E. Cheese's
Fazbear.
Pizza Time
Oh.
Theater opened to rave reviews, and soon
forgot there
the
was a
franchise
real
would
franchise
spread
that did that.
computer-programmed themed entertainment throughout the country.
Do you think it's possible for us to create a human being?
Look at the technology we have now compared to 5 years ago and extrapolate what's going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years. Yes, eventually we'll be able to create a cybernetic human being.
The film industry was also finding commercial uses for the computer. The animated hand experiment done by Catmull and Park would appear in the 1976 film Future World. The following year, the space opera Star Wars premiered. The film, directed by the young George Lucas, was a massive hit, and its success was in part attributed to its groundbreaking special effects.
I'm gonna write the
Audiences
next
were
Star Wars.
amazed by the exciting space battles, mostly accomplished by filming miniatures with the Dijkstraflex, a computer-controlled camera rig. Less exciting, but just as impressive, was the film's inclusion of a short scene created using three-dimensional computer graphics. After the success of Star Wars, George Lucas saw immense potential in computer-generated imagery, and he hired Ed Catmull to start a computer division within Lucasfilm to continue research into CGI. And then there was Walt Disney Productions. Only a decade after Walt's passing, the company was already in a precarious position. The emergence of the new age of film spectacles such as Star Wars, as well as the rising popularity of more violent and crude films, had obliterated Disney's live-action film business, and the animation studio was not faring much better. The parks was the only division performing consistently well, and Disney was expanding the business by developing Walt Disney World's second gate, named Epcot Center. Walt's initial city concept had evolved into a less risky but still expensive theme park, billed as a permanent World's Fair, with a focus on culture and technological innovations.
Yeah,
As
we
had been
kinda
part
lost
of
the
Walt's
plot
city
of
plan,
Epcot a little bit,
Disney
I'm not gonna
recruited
lie.
major corporations to sponsor
Watching
the park's
things about what it
pavilions.
was meant to
This
be and seeing what
collaboration
it
not
is
only
now
resulted in
is,
Disney receiving the funds to construct much of the
pretty
park,
bit of a
but the
dissonance.
Imagineers were also given access to the state-of-the-art technology that these companies were developing. This was especially valuable during a period in which Disney's internal innovation had slowed. Many of these companies had internal research and development departments that were working on innovations that were intriguing but not yet ready to be sold as products.
Bell Labs engineers and scientists are busy teaching a computer how to speak your language.
Okay, let's hear it.
Don't you like me better now?
Ew.
Tech demonstrations were typically confined to R&D departments and university laboratories. But Disney was in a unique position
hear
to take these
Miku's
glimpses of the
grandpa say,
future
"How do you
and
like me
immediately
now?"
put them in front of the public, in the same way that World's Fairs had for over a century. This resulted in Epcot Center displaying many authentic future technologies, one of the most interesting of which was the first in a new breed of character for the Disney parks. Up to this point, Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom had been populated by two types of character interactions: costumed characters and face characters. Costumed characters, such as Mickey Mouse, can pose, play, dance, and joke with guests, but they cannot speak. The performers are required to embody the spirit of their character through pantomiming and body movements only.
As you go out to greet your audience, remember that the voices
do
of
that.
Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto are easily recognized, and the children are not fooled by imitation. The first rule is that you do not talk.
Face characters, such as the Disney princesses, are performed by people
I
that closely
feel like I
resemble their
wouldn't be
character.
fooled
Their
if I was
faces
a
are
kid.
visible,
If I
and
saw
they are
that,
allowed
I'd
to
be
speak
like,
and interact with guests, although they are
that's
trained to
not
keep their
freaking
conversation
Cinderella,
within their
bro.
character's backstory and personality. There were, of course, several non-interactive characters,
feel like I'm
such as
built
Disney's
different.
ever-improving animatronic technology, but there had always been a clear distinction between live characters and programmed characters. These lines would begin to blur after the opening of Epcot Center. When computer manufacturer Sperry Univac signed on as Epcot Center's official computer provider, the company hoped to use its sponsorship as an opportunity to address the public's growing concerns over the powerful technology. Sperry Univac wanted to help the public understand that computers were friendly. They would not cause doomsday, yet, and they would only replace most jobs, not all. What the Imagineers created for Sperry
Most
Univac as
jobs,
part of this
no.
effort was something
I'd like to see
entirely
them
new,
put out
a
Crudité the
character
way I do.
interaction without a
Yeah, I
human
couldn't do none
operator.
of that.
In Epcot Center's Communicore East exhibit hall, above the chatter of technological displays, a childlike voice could be heard interacting with guests. This was Smart One, a
I
friendly
don't like
robotic
that. I don't
character
like
that
that.
acted as an ambassador for the computer.
Oh, I don't like that. Why didn't we make robots sound friendly?
The figure itself had limited movement, only being capable of lifting one of his arms and turning his head. Lighting effects provided mouth
Why
and eye
didn't we
movement,
understand what
and the
was
figure
creepy
stood on a
back in the
rotating
day?
platform, allowing him to turn 360 degrees.
Hello,
Smart One was placed directly
officer.
under a display board and
This
surrounded by 6
game,
telephones.
man.
If a guest wanted to
Oh
interact
my
with Smart One, they
goodness.
would need to queue by taking a place in front of one
Please
of the
don't.
phones. On each console,
Please
a number
don't.
indicated
Please
how
don't.
many
Please don't.
turns each guest
Please
was
don't.
from their interaction. When Smart One focused on a guest, he would turn to face them. Smart One was computer controlled, and while he was an interactive character, he was not designed to have an open conversation with guests. Rather, he would engage the guest in a game. The majority of Smart One's programming was scripted behavior, using an interaction technique known as a dialogue tree. Dialogue trees are branching conversation structures that present the player, in this case the guest, with
There's
a
a
limited
witch.
number of possible
There's a witch,
responses
there's a
to choose
witch.
from. Each
There's
choice
a
takes the
witch.
interaction in a different direction, diverging from and converging with various paths. When done well, dialogue trees can give the illusion of an open interaction while masking the limited number of outcomes. This was also a step up from Weizenbaum's ELIZA, which had no element of progression through the interaction and simply transformed a user's text input. Uniquely, Smart One featured an autonomous behavior, speech recognition. The progression through Smart One's dialogue trees was triggered by the words the guest spoke into the telephone. Smart One's games included Guess the Number, Guess the Birthday Month, and Trivia. All of these were designed so the guests only needed to respond into their phone with a yes or no answer, and thus the computer system running Smart One only needed to be able to recognize these 2 words. Smart One's dialogue tree worked in tandem with his digital display. For instance, in Guess the Number, Smart One would ask guests to think of a number between 1 and 10. He would then display 4 numbers and
95.
ask the guest if their number was on the screen. If the guest responded yes, then Smart One would move forward, attempting to narrow down the 4 possible numbers by displaying 2 of them in another group of 4. If the guest said no, Smart One could only narrow it down to 6 numbers, in which case he would display 3 of the 6 remaining in
You're the
another group
worst
of 4.
bridge ever made.
Regardless of the path that the guest followed, Smart One needed at least 3 and at most 4 questions to guess their number. If Smart One could not hear the guest or recognize their input, he had several fail-safe phrases that he would say in response. A subtle but notable aspect of these phrases is that Smart One would always take responsibility if he could not understand the input. This was one of the first entries in a new realm of empathetic programming techniques. In the nearly 3 decades since Disneyland had opened, the Disney parks had developed detailed protocols for how their costumed and face characters should interact with guests, both to create a great interaction and to protect the character's image and therefore Disney's. Smart One was unique in that this was the first time that the Imagineers had to literally
I never
program
heard
these
of Smart
ideas
One
into
before?
a character,
Literally ever.
and blame absorption was a great technique to uphold the friendliness of the character. Another clever aspect of the interaction is that Smart One did not ask if he was right at the end of the game.
That's
He
just
simply
how we're trained
revealed
to
his
talk to
guess
people
and
now,
thanked the
is
player for
taking all the blame for
participating,
everything.
avoiding any possible dispute at the
You
end
know
of the
what's crazy?
experience. These little
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience. You know what's crazy working for Disney? Is one thing that we are taught is even if a guest had a bad experience, like, so I work in resorts, right? But let's say that a guest had a bad time in Hollywood Studios and they tell me about it. I have nothing to do with Hollywood Studios. Like, I cannot do anything for them. And yet I still have to like take accountability and like apologize for it. And it always creates for a really weird interaction of them being like, well, we had a terrible time at Hollywood Studios today because we had to wait a really long time for this ride and we had to cancel our reservations and this and that and the other thing. And I have to be the one, because they complained to me, to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything that I can do to accommodate you? And it's like, I can't. Have I seen Stonepaw there? You have no idea how much that's on my mind. You have no idea. I know what ride, I know where he worked for a little bit. And I did try to shoot him a message to be like, hey buddy, crazy stuff back there. Anyway. But he never responded. Apparently that guy is done with Discord altogether and everything online. So I haven't seen anything of him. But what was I saying? Yeah, I have to take accountability for anything that happens that's Disney related that made them have a bad time. I have to be like, oh my goodness gracious, what can I do for you? And I can't do anything. I miss him so much. What was Stonepaw's thing? Didn't he just like watch videos a lot? Didn't he just like watch a ton of videos all the time? Because if so, I am well on my way to being the new Stonepaw. Except I don't have unfortunate messages I said at 14. Wasn't he even younger? Wasn't he like 13? Rip in peace, man. I remember the first time I ever said a swear word. Okay, I shouldn't have started the sentence that way. Remember the first time I ever said a swear word and not the other thing, because I have never used slurs before, but... Should I stop talking? My first swear word was jackass, okay? That's the moral. That was the story that I was trying to get at. I shouldn't stream. With my lack of filter. I'll let you guys watch the video now. I just wanted to talk about my Disney training. My epic Disney training.
Touches vastly improve the quality of the guest's interaction with the character. Smart One wasn't particularly quick in his responses, and his limitations were no secret. But this friendly little robot was the starting
Smart One is
point
kind
for an
of growing on
entirely
me a
new
little bit.
category of character. A
Smart
type
One
of
is kinda
experience that
wearing
would
me
soon
down.
transform the very idea of what a theme park could be. In 1984, just 2 years after the opening of
1984?
Epcot Center, Disney's degrading financial situation resulted in a boardroom coup, in which Walt's nephew and Roy's son, Roy E. Disney, ousted Walt's
Roy
son-in-law,
Disney?
Ron Miller, from the chief executive position.
Ron
Much of
Miller.
the old regime was cleared out to make way for a new leadership team, consisting of Paramount president Michael Eisner, Paramount president of production Jeffrey Katzenberg, and former Warner Brothers executive Frank Wells. Early on in their tenure,
Jackass
the
is one of
executive
the
team
best
was
swear words.
presented
I
with
would
a unique
agree.
opportunity. George
Jackass
Lucas
is
was
still
going
a
through a
golden
divorce,
one. I'm
which
glad
had
I
put a
started off
significant
on the
strain
right
on his
foot.
finances. As a result, he was forced to spin off Lucasfilm's graphics group into its own company. In its 8 years of operation, the graphics group had been producing impressive CGI, and the division dreamed of one day animating the first computer-generated feature film. Roy E. Disney was a proponent of purchasing Lucas's shares in the company, but Katzenberg, Eisner, and Wells were too distracted repositioning Disney to take the offer seriously. The Lucasfilm graphics group would eventually receive its investment from tech mogul Steve Jobs, who had recently been
Steve
ousted from his
Jobs?
own company, Apple Computers. With Jobs as its chairman, the newly independent animation studio was renamed to Pixar. Whether Disney had missed out on an opportunity or dodged a bullet had yet to be seen, but the risky acquisition did not align with the executive team's vision for the company's turnaround. As Wells said when he declined the offer, quote, "We are not an R&D company." Epcot Center had brought forth a new category of character in Smart One, and while he was the most impressive interactive robot at the time of the park's opening, he was not the only one. In the opening celebration special, Smart One could be seen interacting with another robot named Seiko. Designed by inventor Robert Dornick, Seiko was controlled remotely with a small 25-button keyboard capable of triggering 90 different commands, and the character was voiced by Dornick himself. Seiko was originally designed as a surrogate communications tool to help people, especially children, with autism and other disabilities. Seiko became a celebrity in the 1980s, most famously co-starring in Rocky IV. While Seiko would not stay at Epcot Center past the opening special, the robot was a glimpse at a soon-to-be common category of interactive character, one that was not scripted and automated like Smart One, but puppeteered by a hidden performer controlling the character from a distance. In the 1980s, the most common deployment of this technology was with articulated costumed character heads. For example, the Disney-produced children's program, Welcome to Pooh Corner, used a remote puppetry system that allowed off-screen puppeteers to control the mouth and eye movements of the show's costumed
That actually
characters.
does look like
Roaming
analog horror. I'm
radio-controlled
so
robots
glad I
such as
didn't
Seiko
exist in
were
the
less
80s.
prevalent, but
I would've
several
had a
did
horrible
exist.
time.
For instance, inventors Ron and Terry Palmer built and operated rentable remote-controlled robots. Their most famous creation
Hello,
was
Minecraft
Orion,
Alpha
who was a
War.
hit at corporate
Hi,
parties,
TV.
trade shows, and a variety of other events. Here he is serving food. Here he is as Uncle Sam. Here he is on the news in a big cowboy hat. Here he is
Wow.
helping this guy propose to his girlfriend.
Wow.
Orion,
What
or
an
at least a version of
accomplished
him,
gentleman.
would even make his way to Epcot Center, where he would begin roaming Future World under the new name Gyro. Gyro interacted with guests, told jokes, and even
Pronounced
lifted hats
zero.
off of his head using his antenna. Gyro was controlled and voiced by a nearby operator in a similar manner to Seiko. This puppeteer was typically disguised as a tourist in order to avoid drawing the attention of guests. In 1986, Epcot Center received another roaming robot, named Jiro, the GE robot.
Well, where do you keep your batteries? We don't have batteries. I get it. Batteries not included.
Ew.
Jiro's features were similar to Gyro, with the most notable difference being Jiro's scooter, which allowed a guest to ride around the park with him. Unlike Gyro, Jiro
I'm
was built
so
by
glad I
Imagineering as part of
existed when
Epcot Center's
things didn't
partnership
look like
with General
this.
Electric. GE's liaison, research and development specialist Dave Fink, worked closely with Imagineering on the character. The collaboration went so well that Fink was recruited to join Imagineering in 1987.
Ow.
And just a few years later, he would become vice president
Ow.
of research and development at Walt Disney Imagineering. When Fink joined Disney, Imagineering did not even have an R&D division. Instead, it had a technology applications department, which consisted of just 4 people. Fink was initially recruited to modernize Imagineering's engineering group, but he felt that Imagineering needed a more forward-thinking department, and eventually found the support to form a new R&D division. There was a certain irony to Imagineering having an R&D department. When Walt founded the firm over 3 decades prior, the entire organization was considered to be doing research and development, at the near sole discretion of Walt's personal wishes. In the time since, much of the theme park design and construction process had been standardized, with a surge of external contractors offering theme park-specific services.
Whoa.
This was supported by other major players entering the
Whoa.
themed entertainment space. The executive team was
Whoa.
persuaded to begin investing
Thank
more
you.
heavily into research and development to maintain Disney's competitive edge in the industry. In another reaction to competition, Eisner greenlit a 3rd theme park for Walt Disney World, named Disney MGM Studios, a direct response to Universal's proposed Central Florida theme park. The new park's signature dark ride, the Great Movie Ride, featured another huge leap in animatronic
Great Movie
technology
Ride.
with the
I never got to
introduction
see
of the
it.
first A100 figure. This new, complex animatronic build allowed for more
now
realistic,
it's
fluid, and quick motions. And the first figure to be built on the A100 frame
that
would
what
be
they
the Wicked Witch of the
replaced it? I
West
don't know.
in the
I
ride's
only
Wizard of
work
Oz
there.
scene. While the park
I
had
don't
a
know
few
anything.
highlights such as this, Disney MGM opened with very few offerings. Several attractions were already in development for the park after its opening, including a clone of the popular Star Tours attraction from Disneyland, which had opened as the first theme park ride based on George Lucas's Star Wars
I
franchise.
took my dad on
Around
Star
the same
Tours
time of
and
Disney
he nearly
MGM's opening,
got sick.
Eisner was entering discussions with puppeteer
felt
and filmmaker
really bad
Jim
for it.
Henson to potentially have Disney acquire his beloved Muppet characters. Jim Henson was one of the most famous names in the entertainment industry, and by the late 1980s, he had taken on a status and reverence reminiscent of Walt Disney. Henson even hosted his own television show, The Jim Henson Hour, on which he presented his team's projects in a similar manner to how Walt had over 2 decades prior.
I don't let
On
myself
the show,
watch too many
Henson
Muppets
showcased
things
his
because I
workshop's
feel like I would
experiments
get
with
too
new
into
forms
it.
of
Do you know what I
puppetry,
mean?
including remote puppetry and the emerging
There's some
field
forms
of
of media
virtual
that I have to
puppetry,
stay away
which allowed
from
for
because
live
I know
motion
I'll get
capture
too
of
into them.
computer-generated characters. Henson was also considering opening his own theme park, and he was actively consulting with engineer and special effects designer Bran Farron and his company, Associates and Farron, on the proposed project. Henson would cancel his theme park project once he entered negotiations with Disney, and he would develop several Muppet-based attractions for the Disney parks. While a few of these concepts, including the elaborate Muppet Vision 3D show, would come to fruition, Henson would
Rip
unfortunately
Muppet
pass away
Vision,
from an
no.
unexpected illness in May of 1990. Disney's acquisition of the Muppets fell through shortly after. While Henson would not see his Muppet attractions in operation at Disney MGM, he had become a catalyst for a major shift within Walt Disney Imagineering. During his time working with Disney,
McCarthy.
Henson had connected Bran Farron and his firm with the Imagineers. And shortly after, Imagineering began to contract Associates and Farron on a variety of projects. Wells and Eisner were impressed by Farron's contributions, and in 1993, the executive team decided to acquire Associates and Farron for a reported $20 million. By this point, Imagineering's R&D had grown to around 40 people, and the acquisition of Farron and Associates would significantly expand the division's capabilities. Farron replaced Dave Fink as head of R&D, and he brought many of his employees with him, including a 27-year-old special effects cameraman named Bruce Vaughn, who suddenly became a director of R&D in Imagineering. A year after the acquisition, on April 3, 1994, Disney president Frank Wells died in a helicopter crash. The sudden and
Frank
tragic
Wells.
death left Eisner without his partner.
Watch this, this is
Eisner
the
did not
lucky
believe
egg.
that he would ever find a true
Never mind.
replacement for Wells, and he
Never
spent the
mind.
ensuing years bouncing between a variety of individuals from whom he would seek counsel. One of these was Bran Farron. As Disney expanded its business operations, Eisner increasingly looked at Imagineering, especially Farron's R&D labs, as the creative heart of the company and the first line of defense against a rapidly changing world. While Disney was experiencing unprecedented success, both in their theme parks and at the box office, there was an air of uncertainty in regards to the future. By the mid-1990s, audiences were regularly encountering groundbreaking computer-generated special effects, and they would soon witness the first computer-generated feature film, Pixar's Toy Story. Video games were becoming more advanced, allowing players to explore entirely virtual worlds. Most curiously, everyone was talking about this new thing called the Information Superhighway, sometimes referred to as the World Wide Web, or lamely, the Internet. Most people didn't fully understand it yet, but whatever it was predicted to have huge effects on the world, especially the entertainment industry. Disney had done its best to participate in the latest trends in technology. While Eisner had missed the opportunity to acquire Pixar, Disney had kept a close relationship with the small studio, partnering with them to co-produce and distribute Toy Story. Disney had also begun to experiment in the video game space, with a team of Imagineers and R&D developing a VR experience called Disney Vision, which took players on a magic carpet ride through the world of Aladdin. Still, the fear of obsolescence was prevalent in executives at Disney, and especially Eisner. He explained, quote, "I've always been fearful that I'd end up in an industry like the railroads, when they sneer at airplane travel. We have to deal with the new distribution systems of entertainment, with interactivity. Walt Disney used to follow technology by becoming friends with the head of Westinghouse. I've got Bran Farron." To support Farron's efforts to develop forward-thinking technology, a new track was established within Imagineering, named the Disney Fellows. The goal of the program was to recruit world-famous innovators and invite them to consult on Imagineering's various projects. Danny Hillis, a pioneer in parallel computing, would join the company as the first Disney Fellow in 1996. All divisions of the company were encouraged to utilize Imagineering's now robust R&D department, in the hopes that out-of-the-box thinking would benefit all
we're this far in the
aspects of
video and I
Disney's
still
growing
don't know what
business.
R&D means, if I'm being honest. Is that snow?
Shortly after the Disney Fellows program launched, Park Operations approached R&D for help with solving an age-old problem: wait times. The number one complaint of Disney's theme parks were the long waits for attractions, and Operations was looking for ways to move guests through the ride's queues faster. In a display of the exact type of creative problem solving that Eisner was encouraging, Danny Hillis posited that the solution to wait times did not lie in ride efficiency or queue management. Instead, he believed that the issue was that the park's exterior environment was not nearly as interesting as the experiences inside of the attraction show buildings, leading people to focus all of their time on the rides and therefore queuing. Hillis suggested making the park's environment as engaging and impressive as the rides. Park Operations already attempted a version of this strategy with live entertainment offerings. These high-concept music and comedy performers were often contracted acts, resulting in tones and aesthetics that sometimes clashed with the theming of the environment.
Oh, hell yeah. What a tasty
On
fucking
the other
lick
hand,
that
many
is.
of these acts became fan favorites, such as Push the Talking Trash Can, a remotely puppeteered garbage bin that would joke and flirt with guests.
Ooh. No, and then they have to give it a stupid voice.
These roaming performers were effective in occupying crowds
That
between
thing talked to
queues,
me, I would-
and
I
Hillis
would punch
proposed
it
that
in the
Imagineering
freaking
take them to the
throat,
next
dude.
level, suggesting that the park should be populated with creatures
thing came up and
such
talked
as
to me?
dinosaurs and unicorns. Hillis recalls this exact suggestion as if it were a spur-of-the-moment idea, but Disney was already under development on a park that planned to prominently feature both dinosaurs and unicorns, Walt Disney World's fourth theme park, Animal Kingdom. It is
What?
possible that Farron and Hillis, who were also consulting on Animal Kingdom, were developing roaming creatures specifically for the new park. Regardless of their origin, Imagineering's research and development started experimenting with environmental creatures, and the team began by designing a robot dinosaur. The intention was to make the figure autonomous and free-roaming, meaning that the machine needed to be able to move without assistance, react to the environment around it, and carry its own power supply and computer systems. It needed to do all of these things while also looking like a Triceratops. Unlike Seiko, Gyro, Giro, and Push, who roam the park on wheels, the dinosaur figure needed to be able to walk using mechanical legs. Several Imagineers and R&D suggested that the dinosaur be smaller than an actual Triceratops, so that the figure had a better chance at functioning reliably.
That sounds
Farron
way
and
too
Hillis
scary.
rejected this idea.
Like
They wanted it to be large and imposing, explaining that if they were going to do it, it needed to be big. One team, working out of the old Associates and Farron lab in East Hampton, initially wanted to put a V8 Corvette engine in the dinosaur to power the hydraulics that would move the figure's legs.
The loudest thing
Imagineers
ever?
in Glendale were shocked. The engine would be painfully loud and completely impractical for a theme park. To solve this, the Glendale team suggested that electric motors and batteries be used instead. Battery-powered electric drive systems for a machine of this scale were not common nor particularly advanced in the late 1990s, but they were necessary to achieve the roaming character. Another challenge would be programming the figure to sense its environment, know its position, and take steps forward. Imagineers needed to hire software engineers who specialized in walking algorithms to help the team achieve the figure's motion. Imagineer Frank Mezzatesta recalled of the interview process, quote, "It was great up to the question, so when you tried your algorithm, how did it do? The answer was always the same. I could not get funding to test my theory. You are the only guys spending this kind of money on walking." By early 2000, the team had finished a prototype of the figure and were ready to reveal it to executives. The project had already required millions of dollars in funding and taken a significant amount of development time. Hillis wanted to impress with the presentation, but worried that since everyone knew that they were coming to view a robotic dinosaur, it would be difficult to impress them. To reset expectations,
Wait, is this the part that
Hillis
went viral
built a
on
crate
Twitter?
that was much smaller than the figure the
I think
team
this
had
is the
actually
part that I
built.
saw on Twitter
At the
where it
beginning of the presentation,
comes out and
Hillis implied
petrifies
that the figure was
everyone.
inside the box, so when he opened the crate, the audience was surprised to see that nothing was inside. At that moment, the wall behind him would come down and oh my god, it's huge! It's so big! Why would they think this wasn't big enough? This could kill someone. Mezzatesta even said, quote, "This could kill someone. It's 13 feet tall. It's 18 feet long. It's
it's revving its
11,000
engine.
pounds." For our metric-based
freaking
audience,
way.
that is equal to something that is huge and enough to kill someone. The machine, nicknamed the Autonomous Walking Platform, or more simply, Big Dino, was said to be, quote, "the largest robot ever built that has legs and doesn't have a human inside." Just as Hillis and Farron had
that's quite
hoped,
the
the figure
achievement.
was autonomous and free-roaming. The figure featured gyroscopes and sensors to determine its real-time positioning, and it used its 4 legs to constantly adjust itself to stay upright and walk forward. The sheer weight and force of the Big Dino consistently threw its position off,
Dino.
and it needed to be programmed to continuously adjust to its frame
Wait,
flexing
I'm actually
as it
a really
took
big
steps.
fan of Big
The
Dino.
figure also did not look
That's my
anything
job
like a
at Disney.
dinosaur,
I'm the Big
and
Dino
only
wrangler.
featured machinery necessary to walk, with 2 onboard monitors providing crude eyes for demonstration purposes. Any mechanisms that would move the dino's neck or open and close the dino's jaw would be additional weight to the already heavy figure. Plus, it still needed to be fashioned with artificial skin. But these technical challenges paled in comparison to just how terrifying the creation was, both aesthetically and logistically. The 11,000-pound monster was horrifying. Hillis
11,000
recalled giving the
pound.
demonstration to other Imagineers
Almost
and
as big as your
executives
mom.
who were legitimately scared and were convinced that it was far too scary for the parks. This was not helped by the exposed metal and machinery, but its sheer size alone was overwhelming. Mezzatesta recalled that in one demonstration, an executive shot up and ran away from the machine out of pure fear. The psychological terror was nothing compared to the fear of a malfunction. Mezzatesta said, quote, "If this walks down Main Street and it falls over, it will crush dozens of guests." Mechanical engineer Akhil Madhani admitted, quote, "We'd be in a whole lot of trouble if this thing fell over." The Big Dino was dangerous and horrifying, and it had no chance of operating in a children's theme park, at least not in this form. By the time of the
wanna
final
design shirts
demonstrations,
for Big
Hillis
Dino.
and Farron had moved on from the Big Dino, and in early 2000,
Wait,
the two
I haven't
exited
moved on from
Imagineering
Big
to start
Dino.
their own company. Mezzatesta was put in charge of the project, which
No
only
idea
continued
for
for
a
a few
FNAF
more
game?
months
I'm
before
actually
officially
gonna
ending.
No.
However, the basic
Once
idea
we're
of a
done with
robotic
this,
dinosaur
I'm
roaming
gonna
the
design
parks did
t-shirts
not
for
die,
Big Dino.
and within a few years, a second iteration was developed.
This is how I'm
one
gonna
that
make
was
my
smaller,
freaking fortune.
safer, and less horrifying. On August 28, 2003, Walt Disney Imagineering held a
Millions
special
spent
event
for
at the
that.
Natural
Isn't that
History
just, like,
Museum of Los Angeles,
mind-freaking
promising to
boggling?
unveil the next big thing in theme parks. Imagineers treated the press to a preview of a brand new character, a walking dinosaur named Lucky. Lucky was just 9 feet tall and only weighed
Boo.
450 pounds.
You
He
will
walked
never
on
be
2
Big
legs and
Dino.
pulled a flower cart that stabilized his motion, carried his computers and batteries, and contained a human operator. Unlike the autonomous Big Dino, Lucky was puppeteered by the concealed driver, who worked in tandem with Lucky's human companion, a handler named Chandler. Lucky's puppeteer was given 2 types of controls: free movements and canned animations. Free movements were live controls, where a puppeteer could control aspects of the character
If you
at their own
can't kill Gus by
discretion
falling
within a
over, why
set
are you
range
even
of
there?
motion.
That's what I'm saying. Go
Canned
big or go
animations were
home.
pre-animated movements
That's gonna
that the
be my Big
puppeteer could
Dino shirt.
trigger,
It's gonna be like
at
Big
which point
Dino.
they would lose
Go
some
Big Dino
control
or go
until
Big
the sequence
Home.
was complete. Lucky's canned animations gave him the ability to sneeze, groan, and belch.
Come on, burp it out.
Most
I'm
impressively,
lost.
Lucky
Oh,
could
no, I'm
sign
lost
autographs
again.
with the assistance of his
Oh, I'm
handler.
lost
Lucky was
again.
able to hold a pen in his mouth and draw his signature, a 4-leaf clover. Even though it was scaled down from the Big Dino, the Lucky figure was still impressive, and it appeared far more alive than its predecessor ever had. Lucky was marketed as the first free-roaming audio animatronic figure. The project had been supported by Imagineer Bruce Vaughan, who had stayed at Imagineering after Farron,
No,
his
no,
former
no, I
boss,
wanna go
had exited.
home.
Vaughan, who is now Vice President of Research and Development, explained that Lucky was a test to see if walk-around animatronic characters could work in the Disney parks. Senior creative executive at Imagineering, Tom Fitzgerald, explained, quote, "Walt always wanted his characters to live and breathe. This is a natural evolution of that."
Oh,
Richard Barrier
no, I
of the
wanna go
Orlando
home.
Sentinel declared, quote,
This isn't home.
"Mr. Lincoln, meet Lucky.
No.
Your future could be in the hands of a dinosaur." Disney assured the public that Lucky the Dinosaur was just the beginning of a new era for the parks. One where animatronic characters would no longer be bolted to the ground and forced to recite the same script again and again.
But they
Instead,
are.
Imagineering was dedicated to populating the parks with a new, advanced form of artificial life. They were embarking on an intentional effort, an endeavor that they called the Living Character Initiative.
Oh, I knew this would happen. I knew I would lose my way.
On November
how to get to
18,
the lake.
1993,
The lake.
Mickey Mouse turned 65, and to mark the occasion, Disney held an elaborate celebration in his honor. Titled Mickey's Worldwide Kids Party, Disney provided vacations to 20,000 children from disadvantaged backgrounds. A lesser reported aspect of the celebration was the creation of a new statue for Disneyland Park.
Oh.
This piece would be created by retired Imagineer Blaine Gibson. Gibson was most famous for sculpting many
Blaine
of the
Gibson.
park's original audio animatronics, including the first Abraham Lincoln figure, which he had crafted from a copy of Lincoln's actual life mask. Gibson had first created a bronze bust of Walt in the early 1960s and presented it to him as a thank you gift. When Walt received it, he responded, quote, "What am I going to
I've
do with
seen the
this?
Lincoln
Statues
life
are for
mask."
dead people." Walt soon became a dead person, and years later, Gibson was asked to depict Walt
The
again,
raisins.
this time for a commemorative medal to raise money for Cal Arts. Walt's widow Lillian was reportedly not pleased and asked that Walt not be depicted in future busts or statues. Lillian and the Disney family made an exception in 1986 for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, who wanted to induct Walt into their Hall of Fame, for which Gibson made another bust of his former boss. Just a few years after this, Gibson was approached by Imagineer Marty Sklar about sculpting Walt again, but this time, the piece would not be a bust. Sklar wanted a full-scale statue, depicting Walt holding Mickey's hand. The motivation was reportedly that many people within the company noticed that the children who were growing up nearly 3 decades after Walt's passing no longer understood that he was a real person, with many believing that he was merely a character or even just a brand name, like Betty Crocker or Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
The new statue was to be loosely based off of a lithograph that had been commissioned in the early 1980s named Partners. Gibson drew up several concepts of Mickey and Walt in various poses and holding different objects. Debate over the statue's design was intense. These were inarguably 2 of Disney's most valuable assets, their namesake, Walt, and their mascot, Mickey. One concept of Mickey holding an ice cream cone was rejected on the basis that it gave preference to one of Main Street USA's sponsors. Plus, some believed it made Mickey appear too childlike. Walt's exact gesture was also drawn in several different ways, including a direct point and a wave, before the team eventually landed on a raised open palm. The intention was for Walt to appear to be admiring the park and how much guests were enjoying it. Reportedly, Eisner received permission from Lillian to commission the statue and place it in the park. Gibson worked diligently to craft the piece, attempting to combine the memories of the man that he knew with the legend that he had become. Just as Gibson had done with Lincoln, the depiction was made to be taller than its subject, with the statue being 7 inches taller than Walt actually was. On the morning of Mickey's birthday, Roy E. Disney unveiled Gibson's copper statue, officially named Partners. Walt was now permanently in the park that he had created, holding hands with his most famous creation. Recreated versions of the partner statues would eventually be placed in Disney parks around the world, including the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World and in Tokyo Disneyland. After Partners debuted, Gibson was asked that since Disney had now commissioned a statue of Walt, if he believed that Walt would ever be turned into an animatronic. Gibson responded, quote, "There are several reasons why I would be against doing that." As cautious as Disney was over using Walt's image, they were even more aggressive in protecting Mickey's. On October 27, 1998, the Copyright Term Extension Act was signed into law, extending protections for copyrighted works for an additional 2 decades. The law was nicknamed the Mickey Mouse Protection Act due to Disney's intense lobbying efforts in support of the bill. But Disney determined that the benefits of the legislation outweighed the negative publicity, highlighting just how important protecting Mickey was to the corporation. The defensiveness over the character was palpable throughout the Disney company, including in Imagineering's research and development department. Around the same time that Mickey was having his copyright protection extended, a small group in R&D was beginning work on a secret project featuring the iconic mouse. Full disclosure, little is known about this project, so a lot of the following description is hearsay and speculation, and I cannot fully confirm the details. Rumoredly, the project was named Mickey's Music Machine. The interaction took place on a large video screen, where a digital version of Mickey Mouse would appear. On the ground in front of the screen was a large piano mat, which allowed participants to interact with Mickey. When a player stepped on a key, a cartoonish obstacle would be triggered on the screen, such as a whistle blowing smoke or a hammer falling, resulting in Mickey getting hit by the object. The designers wanted the interaction to be completely autonomous, so to increase the illusion that the virtual Mickey was alive, the Imagineers attempted to integrate artificial intelligence into the experience. The idea was that throughout the interaction, Mickey would become smarter. While he would initially get hit by the obstacles, as the experience progressed, he would learn to avoid them. Reportedly, the demonstration was in part a response to Hillis and Farron's Big Dino, with the team behind Mickey's Music Machine wanting to pursue what they believed was a more practical approach to the concept of living characters. Supposedly, Mickey's Music Machine functioned and showed promise, but when the R&D team showed it to executives at Imagineering, they were not pleased. Marty Sklar was rumored to have remarked something to the effect of, "Whose idea was it to hit Mickey Mouse on the head?"
We take the position that no idea is a bad idea.
After this rejection, much of the original team disbanded, but R&D Vice Presidents Eric Hazeltine and Andy Ogden did not give up on the concept. Hazeltine and Ogden had both previously worked on the Aladdin VR project, and they began to recruit some of their Disney Vision collaborators to attempt a new virtual interaction with Mickey. This included animator Daniel Kalahakamo and interactive designer J. Walt Adamczyk. Adamczyk had nearly a decade of experience in virtual puppetry, having been a part of groundbreaking work for both Hollywood films and theme parks, and he felt that a virtual puppet of Mickey Mouse was the best direction to take the project. On top of artificial intelligence tools being fairly rudimentary at the turn of the century, the benefits of this technology could not be appreciated in a character interaction that only lasted a couple of minutes. By making Mickey a virtual puppet that would be voiced live by a puppeteer, he could be a truly interactive character. The team in R&D planned to surround the virtual puppet with physical props and effects to create a convincing multimedia interaction. Like Mickey's Music Machine, the new interaction would be given a basic story, written by actor and writer John Paragon. Participants would walk into an elevator where they would be surprised to find that the operator was none other than Mickey Mouse. Mickey would take guests to various floors where the doors would open, revealing different settings and effects. For instance, Mickey would go to floor B, thinking it was the basement, only to learn that it was literally full of bees. The resulting experience, named Mickey's Toon Elevator, was a fully realized immersive mini attraction, featuring multiple projectors, practical effects, and even a motion base to simulate the elevator's movement. This, combined with impressive real-time rendering and an energetic performance by a puppeteer, was an effective way of bringing Mickey to life. Adamczyk and the team set up the interaction to be story-driven, so the demonstration was less of a meet and greet and more of an adventure taken with a live character. This allowed for much of Mickey's movements to be pre-animated, and it avoided having Mickey in an open conversation format. Mickey's Toon Elevator was incredibly well received, and when it was shown to Disney executives at an R&D open house, they were excited by its potential. Even Michael Eisner found the demonstration promising. The person most interested in the attraction might have been Toshio Kagami, the president of the Oriental Land Company, the Japanese corporation that owned and operated Tokyo Disneyland Resort. Kagami was very interested in bringing Mickey's Toon Elevator to the resort's new second gate, Tokyo Disney Sea. Imagineer Joe Garlington began developing a version of the attraction for Kagami, with the intention of placing the experience in a vacant space in the park's impressive SS Columbia ship. While everyone in leadership seemed to agree that the experiment was a success, they also agreed on something else. If the attraction were to make it to the parks, Mickey could not be the star. The character was simply too valuable for the unpredictability of the format. Part of this was typical corporate risk aversion. It was safer and easier to not do anything with Mickey than it was to do something with him. But the virtual puppetry format added another layer of uncertainty. In order for the attraction to run in the parks, a rotating cast of puppeteers would need to be hired, each of which would have needed to have a Mickey impression that met the standard of Disney.
Oh boy, that's Mickey. Now if I go down here and go, oh boy, that's Mickey. Well, it's not.
You know
quite
how many
right.
guests try to do a Mickey impression for us?
He sits in a very
It's
narrow
horrible.
area, and you've got to pinpoint
It's horrible, and
Mickey
it
Mouse
happens
has
all
one of the most
time.
recognizable voices in entertainment.
Guests will be
Only
like,
3
"Watch
actors
this,"
had consistently
and we'll be
voiced him
like,
over his 70-year
"Please
history,
stop," and it's like,
one of
"Please
which was
stop.
Walt himself.
Please stop.
It's me, I guess.
To get a full cast of puppeteers to meet this standard and operate the attraction every day in a park setting would be next to impossible. Additionally, there was also the fear of what exactly Mickey would say. What if one of the puppeteers slipped up and said something inappropriate as Mickey? What if a guest purposely brought up an uncomfortable topic? What if the program broke and Mickey froze in front of a child? There was simply too much uncertainty. Even with proper training and advanced technology, mistakes could happen, but mistakes could not happen with Mickey Mouse. Reportedly, sometime around early 2002, Imagineering Vice President Tom Fitzgerald suggested to Andy Ogden that rather than using Mickey, the team should use a less protected character, such as Stitch. This led to the team asking the obvious question: who is Stitch? The animated feature film Lilo and Stitch would not come out until June, so the team had to request an advance copy of the film. It turns out, Stitch was a chaotic alien experiment that crash-landed in the picturesque Hawaii, and through the help of his newfound family, learned to suppress his destructive nature. Using the film as a basis, the team envisioned a new virtual puppetry experience with Stitch as its star. The team still felt that they needed a basic premise to anchor the experience, although the strict narrative structure of Mickey's Toon Elevator would be abandoned. The new attraction would be named Stitch's Picture Phone, and it would feature Stitch video conferencing with guests from his home in Hawaii. With much of the same team from Mickey's Toon Elevator working on the project, Stitch's Picture Phone was up and running in a matter of months. The interaction seemed to be as charming and engaging as Mickey's Toon Elevator, and Ogden was determined to get it into the parks. Luckily, there was a perfect spot for it. In the mid-1990s, the Communicore exhibit halls at Epcot Center, where Smart One interacted with guests, were overhauled and replaced with the new, theoretically more hip, Innoventions. Smart One was subsequently moved to the Contemporary Resort, where he was renamed to X1846 and made into a remote-controlled robot that could serve drinks. As part of the transformation to Innoventions, Imagineering created its own small exhibit space, where Ogden and Hazeltine had debuted their Aladdin VR demo. This allowed select guests to try out the experience, while Imagineering made it clear that it was merely a tech demonstration. In 1998, a smaller Innoventions opened in Disneyland's Tomorrowland, also featuring a series of technology-focused exhibits. Ogden felt that this was the perfect avenue to sneak Stitch's Picture Phone into the parks. Using the guise of a playtest, the team set up the experience as if it were any other themed attraction, adorning it with set dressing and large props. The experience was not advertised to the public, but for those Disneyland guests that wandered into Innoventions and stumbled upon the attraction, they were treated to a bespoke, intimate interaction with Disney's newest animated star. After waiting outside of the attraction, parties were taken in one at a time for their video call with Stitch. The majority of the space was dedicated to a large projection screen. When guests entered, the screen displayed looping alien graphics. One guest was asked to pick up a physical phone, and after doing so, the screen appeared to transition to a video feed of Hawaii. Guests were amazed when Stitch himself crawled down from a palm tree and began speaking with them.
Hi, it's me.
I know.
What's your name?
The interaction lasted nearly 5 minutes, with Stitch having a full, open-ended conversation with guests. Behind the scenes, a puppeteer monitored the guest and voiced Stitch through a microphone. Stitch was controlled using a standard video game controller, the same kind of controller that would normally be used to play games on an Xbox, or pilot a military drone, or lead a Titanic expedition. Like Lucky the Dinosaur, Stitch was operated with a mix of free movements and canned animations. Stitch's two main free movements were his head, which could be rotated in any direction, and his torso, which could be shifted from left to right. Stitch's mouth automatically responded to the puppeteer's voice, so they would not have to worry about syncing it manually. Stitch's canned animations, or pre-animated bits, included burping, laughing, waving, sulking, and smiling.
Can you smile?
Yeah.
Those are my canned animations too.
Okay, very good.
While the burp and laugh animation would lock the head into a specific animation, the head would remain free to be controlled during the wave. The smile and sulk actions were more expressions that Stitch could put on while the puppeteer retained control over the character. The more talented and experienced the puppeteer, the more fluidly these animations could be blended. To add variety, the puppeteer could also have Stitch climb a palm tree. Perhaps the most clever part of the attraction was when Stitch asked to take a picture of the guests. A camera was situated to the left of the screen, and this was how the puppeteer could see the guests on the monitor. This camera was also able to take their picture. Stitch would jump into the tree to take the photo, which placed the character's camera as close to the actual camera as possible so that the guest's eyeline would be correct. The result would actually print out into Stitch's virtual world, and Stitch placed the photo in his personal scrapbook. Stitch would then say he had to go. The call would be disconnected, and guests would exit. On their way out, the group was handed a code and a URL to retrieve their photo online. To the guests that were lucky enough to experience it, Stitch's picture phone was pure magic. Unlike a traditional meet and greet, which typically interpreted a character into a three-dimensional wearable costume, Stitch's picture phone allowed families to interact with the same version of the character that they had fallen in love with on screen. While the Imagineers were initially surprised to find that Stitch did not speak much in his own film, this had several advantages. For one, audiences did not have a solid reference for what Stitch sounded like or what he should say. So if one of the puppeteers was off, either in the voice or the characterization, it would not be as obvious. The newness of the film also helped in this regard. When Stitch's picture phone began testing at Interventions, Lilo and Stitch had only been in theaters for a few weeks. Since audiences had such limited exposure to the material, any errors in the presentation did not feel as sacrilege as with an established and beloved character. Stitch's personality also had several advantages over Mickey specifically. Stitch was a chaotic little monster. He was constantly moving and bouncing off of the walls. From an animation perspective, it was far easier to animate a character that was constantly moving as opposed to one that was meant to be planted on the ground. Mickey's Toon Elevator was clever in that it always gave Mickey something to do. But in general, Mickey is a character that is known to be gentle and happy to stand still. Stitch was the opposite, and these big, fast movements were much easier to sell than the nuance of a more calm character. Also, if the real-time render engine glitched, which it would do every so often, this did not always look like a mistake, and instead just looked like a typical erratic Stitch. From a social perspective, audiences had no expectation that Stitch would provide any level of attention or emotional connection. Another advantage that he had over Mickey. Mickey is most in character when he is being nice to you or listening to you. Stitch was most in character when he was running around ignoring you. This interaction technique, sometimes known as railroading, gave the puppeteer far more control over the interaction. The only consistent question that Stitch would be asked was predictably, "Where's Lilo?" And pretty much any answer would suffice.
Where's Lilo?
Oh, she's out with her sister. They're doing girly stuff.
Where's Lilo?
Oh, thank God.
This is her lesson.
I'm such
Stitch's
a big
picture phone
goofy
was a
idiot.
massive achievement, but it was not perfect. For one, there were several obvious errors in the animation. When Stitch was in the tree, his head clipped through his arm frequently. Two props in the background, a surfboard and a hat, were simply cosmetic, and Stitch was unable to interact with them. Unfortunately, guests often encouraged Stitch to put on the hat and go surf on the surfboard. They were doing this not as an attempt to break the illusion, but because they believed they were put there for this very purpose. This put the puppeteer in the position of having to reject the guest as Stitch. while at the same time revealing that he was incapable of doing something. This had the potential of grinding the interaction to a halt.
Can you get the hat?
No, wait, it's not mine. What's the fat man over there?
Of course, guests were sometimes less innocent, asking strange or purposefully inappropriate questions.
There we go.
Stitch would often get out of these uncomfortable situations by doing something
Stitch if
chaotic,
he's gay.
such as randomly doing a celebrity impression.
Oh, this is cringing me out too bad. This is cringing me out way too bad. I'm not gonna lie.
Can you do the moonwalk?
Okay, Stitch, that's enough impressions. Let's move on to something else.
How many genders are there?
Oh my
Whoa,
god.
Stitch, you do not have to answer that.
There's 2 genders. There's male and female, just like Earth.
Okay, Stitch, everybody, yeah. Oh, still going, okay.
So there's kind of 3 within the experience.
Oh, okay.
Boys like me.
Yeah.
Girls like my cousin Angel.
Right.
And then there's some that are kind of
Wait,
like,
Angel's his cousin?
androgynous, I guess.
Yeah.
There.
Oh, I don't like it.
That's
I
it,
don't
right?
like it,
But
I
I
don't
mean, they
like
were
it.
meant to like destroy, not to necessarily create.
Do you see why we can't do this with Mickey? The Stitch actors also tended to have inconsistent interpretations of the character, with some performing him as if he were a child, while others portrayed him as a ladies' man, having him flirt with any of the older girls in the room.
Speaking of that, why are all the girls better looking than all the guys in the group?
Strangely, this aspect of Stitch's character is not seen in the film
way
itself,
too
but it was a
cringe.
significant
It's way
aspect
too
of the marketing
cringe.
campaign. The most persistent issues that Stitch's picture phone experienced were because of the size of the interaction. The actual
I'm so
attraction
glad
was
we
a
got
very
rid of
small
this. Tell me
space,
when we got
and it was
rid of it so
difficult
I
to
can
fit more than
celebrate that
6
day
guests into any
annually.
one session. Not only was it challenging to fit more bodies into the room, but the quality of the interaction became significantly worse with more people. The physical phone was a fun prop that helped facilitate the conversation, but the puppeteer was able to hear anyone in the room. After the group realized that anything they said could be heard, guests would begin speaking simultaneously, making it much more difficult for the puppeteer to control the interaction.
Okay. 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 We're gonna end here, I think. We're gonna end here, I think. How's that sound? How's that sound? How we feeling? How we doing? That sound pretty decent? You just got... Never too late to be a VOD watcher. Never too late to be enjoying a nice cheeky VOD. But yeah, we're gonna end it here. My back hurts and I just wanted to stream before I went to work because I really wanted to play Minecraft. I know today's Minecraft stream was really boring, but I'm just getting myself set up. I needed materials and to explore. But thank you for being here and watching the video with me. It's a really good one. Of course, anything from Defunct Land. So, we will definitely continue this. I don't know when. Either tomorrow or if I have energy tonight. No promises though. No promises. Just depends on when I have time and when my roommate's not here and this and that and the other thing. Love you all. I go now. Is there anyone I can raid? Do I still raid people? Nah, probably not. I don't think I know anyone live. Okay. Goodbye, good morning, good afternoon.